Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Raw review for the 8th of June 2020. Like, subscribe, comment below if you'd like to see or actually hear future reviews of certain things that we don't cover yet on the channel. Also, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're about a tenth of the way there. Not exactly where I'd like to be, but thank you to each and every one of you who have subscribed. And our watch minutes are through the roof, so thank you for that as well. In any event, as far as this Raw goes, I've been a regular watcher after being away for a couple of years. Probably again for the last, let's call it 8 months. Probably October, November last year. So 8 or 9 months. It's this for me was the worst show of my time back. For personally, not the worst show I've ever seen. I took a couple years off in the mid 2010s. I took most of 2007 away, 2007 and 8 away. So I've had bouts where I didn't watch the program, and there's still stuff, whole segments of years I haven't seen. But in this incarnation of things, this is probably the worst Raw I've seen in about 8 or 9 months. Now, it's weird because there are good segments, but there's going into Backlash, which I'd love your opinion. Comment below if you like. I believe they should have put NXT this weekend and Backlash last weekend. Since they're both network properties, I don't think it would have mattered one way or the other. I can't imagine the NXT show not being the better of the two shows. And so why not put the better of the two shows later in the month? Anyway, there were segments I enjoyed. There were things I enjoyed. But for the most part, other than the Edge Orton thing out of morbid curiosity of how they're going to put together, quote, the best wrestling match ever, quote, which obviously we know they're not going to do, there's nothing on this program that made me care about Backlash at all. Matter of fact, it made me want to watch Backlash a little less because, well, other than Orton and Edge, there's nothing I want to see on that show that is can't miss television. And to me, even though they're network specials now and not pay-per-views, they should still be at least a few matches of can't miss television on the program. Anyway, we're going to move into the show recap here. So we open with um, Asuka entering for her match, and the new tag champs Sasha Banks and Bayley come out. You know what's interesting to me, and I was thinking about this as I was watching the program. If you really look at the last 5 years, so 2015 to now, the most over individuals they have are mostly women. Charlotte Flair, I think, is over than more over than most of the men. I think there can be an argument made for certainly Becky Lynch, definitely, and Bayley and Sasha Banks, possibly. Drew McIntyre would be over if there was a crowd there, but I would say the women have been built better than the men over the last 5 years in WWE. Asuka included in that as well, at a level below. But honestly, she'd be higher ranked if if they allowed her to speak more. I don't know what her English level is, but I assume it's lower than they're comfortable with. Otherwise, why wouldn't they have her speak more? Although they are slowly doing this, they're not doing it at the level they probably could. In any event, so she's out there. Sasha and Bayley come out. The papered crowd, the wrestler crowd, boos. They are happy that they're on SmackDown. Asuka interrupts, and Bayley said that they were allowed to go to any brand they want as champions. Sasha begins telling Asuka to shut up. Charlotte interrupts. She noted that they were trying to go brand to brand like her. which in this case, I suppose, would be a correct assumption. I mean, she's the one that started doing that, and she does it too much in my opinion. But she's doing it, and now they're having Bayley and Sasha do it. That makes sense. They do say they didn't. She does say that they didn't have her stamina. She said to enjoy this while they can before someone takes the championships like they did last time. And then she tells them to leave, and people would rather see her match with Asuka anyway, she says. The Iconics make their way out there. Now, I don't remember, I do know both of these ladies are internationally based, right? The only reason I can imagine they are either one is employed at the level of being on a national television program is because it will lead to having local talent when they do international tours. I don't see any other reason, especially with all the talented women in various places, that these two women are employed. I don't get it. I've tried. I didn't come in during the middle of their major run, so maybe I missed something there and they had stellar matches and I just missed them. But the Iconics to me, especially with all the cuts that they had, they could have cut those two women and not been in a worse position. Also, I'm not saying they're horrible people. I'm not saying that they are incapable of learning to be better wrestlers, but there's nothing about either of the Iconics that makes me scream, these people deserve to be on national television every week. So somebody tell me if I'm missing something. So they interrupt. They said the match that people really want to see is a triple threat match. And they reminded Banks and Bayley that their loss to the Iconics last year at WrestleMania. Asuka yells at everyone in Japanese, and we're off and running after they bragged to Charlotte, who responded by saying she didn't need titles to be relevant, which is true, especially with the fact she's in the main event tonight, even without the championship. Banks and Bayley attack Charlotte. Then everyone brawls around Charlotte and Asuka. We're the only two left standing in the ring. A non-title triple threat match then takes place with the Iconics, Asuka and Charlotte, and Bayley and Banks. So, question becomes, they tell us during the match somewhere in here that Asuka and Charlotte will still battle again tonight. So let me get this straight. Number one, they sign up for a random tag team match with no authority figure to sign it up. It just sort of happens. That drives me nuts, but I'm used to it by now. But then, Asuka and Charlotte, who are already partners, are going to fight later in the night. Are we that desperate on Raw for talent that's even remotely able to draw a rating that we can't, have matches or nights where we don't see people twice? And don't give me we're still in coronavirus pandemic. Then you stretch the matches out. Then you do other segments. This overbooking, double booking of talents just shows lack of creativity. I mean, you can put somebody in, and they did with Apollo Crews. They put him in 3 matches in 1 week a couple of months back, right? Like, it's lazy. It's unnecessary. If you really need to do that, stretch matches out to be 20-25 minutes. That's what they go to school for. Don't have multiple matches with the same talent. It makes you look weak overall. Anyway, so we go into the match here. And I mean, it is what's expected. Referee has difficulty getting it started. Everyone's yelling at each other. Match was made official during the break, is said by one of the announcers, but no mention of who. As mentioned, he also mentions that Asuka and Charlotte still have to fight tonight for unknown reasons. Iconics work over Bayley until Charlotte tags herself in. There's chants from the planted audience that we want Asuka, and Asuka tags herself in. and takes down Banks, Billie Kay, and Peyton Royce by herself. So Asuka looks like a world beater. Asuka was still in control after the break, and Kay hits a version of the Eat Defeat to get things going back in their direction for a little bit. Charlotte tags herself back in and gave Royce an exploder. Asuka tags herself in and used the series of kicks on Kay before Charlotte tags herself back in. Notice a pattern here, folks. And this leads to an argument between the two. And let's see. So then Kay is in the Billie Kay is Billie Kay, something like that. See, I don't even they're so inconsequential to me. I know their last names are Kay and Royce, but I don't even know first names because I don't care that much. And they're on TV every week. That says a lot. So anyway, she locks in the Asuka locks for the submission win. Charlotte attacks Asuka after the match, and she poses with the belts. So then we go to a Rey Mysterio interview. The announcers talk with Rey. Rey really says there's nothing much going on here. Rollins is out to the announce desk, and Rollins says hi to Mysterio, and Mysterio calls him an SOB. So then Mysterio is back at the ability to have an interview segment by video when we come back from commercial break. Tom Phillips, anyway, asks Mysterio about an update on his eye. Mysterio said doctors didn't really want to give him much, but that he said it's looking encouraging. His doctor did encourage him not to get any more eye damage. Well, that's kind of goes without saying. Hey, you almost get your eye poked out. Go do it again. I mean, sometimes the scripting of this is just stupid. Anyway, so Mysterio has a warning for Rollins. When the time comes, he wouldn't wait to give him the 619 until the end of the match. He'd hit the 619 almost immediately as soon as the bell rang. Considering the 619 is not a pinning maneuver or a submission, I don't quite get the inference of, hey, I'm going to do a flashy flippy floppy move right off when I see you, other than it's to get a pop from the non-existent fans that aren't in the building. I don't get it. So Mysterio threatens Rollins over what he did to him and his family. He says he's going to kick his tail. Rollins told Mysterio to stop spreading lies. He said he had the opportunity to walk away a hero, but if he continues to spread these lies, bad things were going to happen. Rollins wants to give him one more chance and invite him, Mysterio and his son Dominic, to Raw next week. Mysterio wasn't buying it. He says the only reason he was inviting him is because he wasn't cleared, but he will be cleared eventually. And Aleister Black flew in over the local guardrail, and then we see him attack him. They go into a match here. Aleister Black and Carrillo versus Austin Theory and Murphy. So, I mean, I'm not really a fan of this either. It comes out of nowhere, and really, it kind of left the Ray segment cut off a bit. So, Black and Carrillo win this match very quickly in under 2.5 minutes. Carrillo takes out Theory with a suicide dive. Murphy is sitting on the top rope. Black catches him with a leaping penalty kick for the pinfall win. Post-match, Rollins comes out to Mysterio's music while wearing his mask. I mean, cheesy heat, but there's no crowds there's no audience in the building, so cheesy heat doesn't matter. I get why they're doing it for TV, but still, it just doesn't look right. Anyway, Theory hits the ATL on Carrillo post-match. Murphy gives Black the Murphy's Law, and Rollins gives him a curb stomp. So, Charlie Caruso interviews Randy Orton. Orton wants to know if Edge was Christian's only guest on the Peep Show. She said yes, and he's about to walk away, but she asked what he meant by that, and Orton said he might actually have two guests. Caruso is confused by this. Christian doing the Peep Show thing, probably the best segment on the show, just because there's fire, and modern indie guys and ladies watch this interview. Don't tell me that scripted promos are everything, because this certainly comes off as non-scripted. Anyway, so Christian says he's happy to see Edge. They hug each other and talk about how excited and happy they are to see Edge return at the Rumble and get his WrestleMania moment. Christian then wanted him to be honest and said that Edge was running on fumes, and the audience chanted, "You still got it." Never got the "you still got it" chant. I mean, like, if a guy's 60 or 70, I get that, but you still got it with guys that are still able to go. I've just never understood the concept of the chant. Doesn't make sense to my brain. But anyhow, so Christian said he didn't think Edge could pull it off. The greatest wrestling match ever in his prime. Christian said they were friends. He had to be honest with each other. He said Edge was lying to himself if he thought he could pull it off. Edge told him to knock it off and consider what he's been through. Edge hasn't had a straight wrestling match in nearly a decade. Now he's expected to have the best match ever. It's like being placed at the bottom of Mount Everest with nothing and told to go. Edge said he wasn't the same Edge who could look Christian in the eye and give him confidence, because he didn't know if he could go out there and have a good tag team match. Edge knew that Orton had been wrestling this whole time and firing on all cylinders. If you've seen Randy Orton's career over the last 9 years, there were many times he wasn't firing on all cylinders, so this is a bit of hyperbole. Anyway, so Edge didn't know how much he had left. Christian gets up in Edge's face, telling him that he's only hearing excuses. Christian asked if he thought he was back just to give everyone some greatest hits, hit a few spears, and go home. Then he should go home now. Christian knew someone who actually believed in Edge, his mom. She's had a ringside for a bunch of his matches, and she'll be there again on Sunday. Now, for those that don't know, Edge's mom, I believe, has passed away, so it's kind of pulling on the heartstrings sort of thing. Christian said Edge wasn't going to show up at Backlash. He should go home right now, and the audience chanted for him. Christian smiled his soul, look in Edge's eyes. That's what he's looking for. So you're looking for him to look psychotic. That's a great way to go into a wrestling match. He says he had it in his eyes to put Orton down at Mania. He said Edge has the anti-venom, which was a really cool line. Orton being the Viper and all. I like the line. Christian added, "We have confidence in you. We think you can win. We think you can have the greatest wrestling match ever. I don't know who we is, but it isn't me." Orton appears on screen. He begs them to shut up. He says that this is pathetic, and that all Edge was going to say is that he was going to try. Orton said he would embarrass and humiliate him. Orton then says he would send Edge home where he belonged with his wife and kids. And then Edge responded, "No, it's not over," and drops the mic to the left before going through the back. He turned and nodded at Christian, and the segment was, like I said, this segment is the best thing on Raw tonight. If you like Edge, if you like Christian, if you like Orton, worth going out of your way to see these three do their thing. Promo wise, Charlie Caruso interviews MVP, who wore a Shad Gaspard T-shirt, which was cool. It's weird for a heel to do, but I totally respect it. And if they wanna have every person wear Shad Gaspard T-shirts, I'm all for it, or merchandise. Hopefully, some of the merchandise value is going to his widow and child, but that's another thing. He said he wanted a breakdown of the effectiveness of the full Nelson, and she'd have to tune into the VIP lounge later. MVP became distracted by our truth. MVP called him a clown, and Bobby Lashley appeared and put Truth down with the full Nelson. And then our weekly foolishness with the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders in a decathlon. So, try to get through this quickly. Each team picks 5 events. First segment was a 1600 meter race chosen by the Street Profits. Ford beats Ivar, lapping him a few times. Raiders select archery, and Eric beat Dawkins. Ivar could be seen trying to run around in the lap in the background. He's still not there. The Profits win in cup flipping. Raiders win in a sword fight after Ford forfeits before they even begin. Dawkins beat Ivar in some hurdles. Ivar thought he'd won because he crashed through them. And Eric beat Dawson in a stick fighting, which resulted in Dawkins being pulled into the kiddie pool. Then we have a dance-off. Ford danced to Shawn Michaels' theme, which I thought was funny. Ivar danced to Fandango's theme, also funny. And then Ivar dances with a lady who calls him cute. She votes for the Viking Raiders to win, but the 2 male judges picked the Street Profits, so they won. Profits were then there's a turkey leg eating contest. Ivar beat Ford and a pole vault, so the events ended with a 5-5 draw. Apollo Crews, he's backstage. He's excited to defend the U.S. Championship against the winner of tonight's triple threat. I'm not a fan of this either. Okay, so we are less than 7 days from a network purview, and as part of the network purview, we get to enjoy a U.S. Championship match that is determined 6 days before, and yet we're supposed to care about the U.S. title. Stupid. Build up championship matches, make them matter, make them count. Anyway, so triple threat match is Andrade and Angel Garza with Kevin Owens, and Owens attacks early, tosses them around ringside, leading to a break. We come back. They're in a match. Zelina Vega at ringside for Garza and Andrade. They team up and attack Owens, as is to be expected. Owens tries fighting back a few times, but he keeps getting cut off. They try a double suplex, and Andrade went for the cover. Garza breaks it up. Then they start fighting with each other. This turns into a brawl. Vega tries breaking it up, but they knocked her over. Some say accidentally, others say on purpose. Either way, it looked good. Vega was taken to the back during a break. Owens goes to the top, but Garza catches him with a kick. Owens elbowed him and hit a senton. Andrade breaks up the cover. Owens has Andrade on his shoulder while giving Garza a senton. Owens hands out cannonballs to each of his opponents. Garza super kicked Andrade, then Owens super kicked Garza. and gives Andrade a frog splash for near fall. Andrade then hit Owens with a back elbow and a near fall. Garza gives Owens a missile drop kick. Garza and Andrade trade strikes. Owens takes both out with a flip dive. Guy decides that Kevin Owens shouldn't be doing a flip dive. Anyway, Garza gets nailed with a stunner attempt, but then kicks his leg out from underneath him. Owens hits a stunner on Garza. Andrade drop kicked Owens and covered Garza for the pinfall win. I mean, this was fine, but if all it's leading to is episode 87 of Andrade versus Apollo, do we really have to have a three-way? Did the match really matter? Not really. So Vega approaches them. Her charges Andrade and Garza, and she said they both fell short. She motions for them to walk away, and they did. So Angle is up next. He's talking about Kurt Angle, that is, talking about the Edge Orton match. He then says that Edge and Orton had some chemistry. He picks Edge to win. So then we move to the Viking Raiders asking Drew McIntyre if he was ready to become a Viking. McIntyre was impressed with their performance in the decathlon. He liked the odds in their match against MVP and Lashley later on and invited them to join him after the show for a celebration. He suggested they watch the VIP lounge next. We've entered the third hour, and by this point, man, I'm ready to stand on my head and do jumping jacks upside down and flip bumps. I've already looked at the clock 3 times by this point and gone, gee, it's only not even 10 o'clock yet. We finally get to the 10 o'clock hour, and remember, I'm on the East Coast. Anyway, so MVP is introducing Lashley, calling him once-in-a-generation athlete. McIntyre out, says he's thanking him for the great introduction. McIntyre told MVP that he forgot to mention that he was WWE champion. MVP wants to know why he's there. McIntyre noticed that Lana and Lashley are having a disagreement backstage. He then asked MVP to continue talking about his devastating finisher. MVP told him that he wasn't talking about him and that he was talking about Lashley. They argue back and forth. McIntyre questions the the nature of the relationship between Lashley and MVP. He wondered if MVP was Lashley's Yoda and wondered if he would teach him how to become champion despite never winning a world title. He threatened to put MVP down again with Claymore kick. Lashley magically appears behind him. McIntyre issues a warning to Lashley. MVP tries attacking him, and McIntyre gave him a headbutt. Viking Raiders enter for the match against MVP and Lashley. Man, they give this 15 minutes. Oi. There's no reason that this match needed 15. I just, no. So Lashley and MVP versus the Viking Raiders. It goes on way too long. McIntyre and Street Profits watching from ringside. Lana's watching in the back. Ivar runs wild till he's yanked out of the ring by Lashley and slammed against the announce table. And then the Street Profits almost jumped the fence to get involved with things. The Raiders worked over Lashley after a break until he gave Ivar a clothesline and tagged in MVP, who hits a running boot. Charlie Caruso interviews Lana backstage mid-match. I don't know where these mid-match interviews are coming from, but I don't like them. Anyway, She asked if it bothered her that Lashley'd been asking her to stay backstage. She calls MVP a leech, admitted that it didn't bother her, but that it's okay because this would give her a chance to make sure he's a champion soon, give her a chance to make 2020 her year, and Lashley gives Ivar the power slam. Eric makes a hot tag, suplex MVP. Raiders double team MVP until Lashley makes the save. They send Lashley to the floor. He bumps into McIntyre. And then Eric taps out to the full Nelson. Post-match, Lashley taunted McIntyre, who just sat there. Ivar Dex MVP. So Lashley put him in the full Nelson. Street Profits tried pulling Lashley off, but they couldn't get it done. McIntyre jumps in and gives Lashley a Claymore kick. This knocked Lashley out of the ring, but he didn't really sell it too bad. And this is the hype for Sunday, which was called a war. Man, I mean, you got to know that McIntyre's winning going into this. If Lashley wins, then you've just killed whatever momentum that McIntyre has. I think McIntyre's the best thing since Cena in terms of company face, so can't see them wasting a title switch on Lashley, but we shall see. Banks and Bayley entered to their music in the main event. The main event, of course, is Charlotte Flair defeats Asuka in a non-title match in just over 27 minutes. Yes, that long. Charlotte decks Asuka. Asuka comes back with strikes. Charlotte pulls her from the ring and launches herself into the announce desks. So Charlotte is still attacking Asuka on the outside after the commercial break. Asuka comes back and blocks a big boot and applies an octopus hold, which the announcers really sell. Charlotte slips out of the octopus. The Iconics are shown watching from the crowd. Let's see. Charlotte's in control until she misses a baseball slide. Asuka hits a dragon screw and a running hip attack into the barricade. Charlotte shows up and clotheslines her into taking control again. Bayley asks the announcers if they kept any snacks under the desk. She also told Saxton that he was dumber than Michael Cole. Man, that would take a lot to be dumber than Cole. Although I actually almost prefer Cole over Saxton. Saxton's about as energetic as dry wheat toast. Anyway, the Iconics suddenly attack, and they attack Bayley and Banks. Phillips loudly tells us that Bayley and Banks, Kay, and Royce were barred from ringside during the commercial break. Asuka hits a running hip attack, kicks Charlotte, avoids an armbar, and hits a series of forearms. Charlotte catches Asuka and tries a running hip attack of her own, and she hits a back suplex for a near fall. Charlotte did a nonchalant cover after knee strike, but Asuka kicks out quick. Asuka comes back with a missile drop kick, German suplex, hip attack in a corner, kicks and more. Charlotte sent out of the ring. Charlotte drove Asuka into the barricade, but Asuka came right back with a sliding kick from the apron. They fight on the apron, and Charlotte boots Asuka right in the face and hits a moonsault off the barricade. And there's about a dozen people saying this is awesome, which I don't know why you want to further that chant, but that's okay. Anyway, Charlotte hits a big boot, and that's a near fall. Charlotte tries spear, but Asuka counters it with a knee. Codebreaker combination. Near fall on Charlotte. Charlotte comes back with a spear for near fall of her own. Traded strikes until Asuka tries for submission. Charlotte blocks it. Asuka nails a roundhouse kick. Then Nia Jax runs down, jumps on the apron. Asuka kicks her down with a hip attack, and then Charlotte gives Asuka a big boot. Gets pinfall. Charlotte has been the champion. And Charlotte posed. Nia Jax gives Asuka a Samoan drop, and Nia's music plays on the way out. Couple of things here. No one in their right mind wants to see Nia Jax in a women's main event picture with so many good women around. Absolutely no one. She has a job, in my opinion, because of who her family is. Nothing more, nothing less. She's dangerous. She's not fun to watch. She's a lot of things. Why they didn't save Asuka and Flair for another round on a network preview, I do not understand. Because now you've wasted it and made it less special in a rematch. But hopefully they meet up down the road. Hopefully this is not a sign that Nia Jax and Charlotte Flair are aligning long term. I think that would make me throw up in my mouth a little. In any event, this is Scott Golden with Pro Wrestling Logic. Until next time, everybody.